क्या कर रहे?
क्वेश्चन एक बार फिर से रिपीट कर दीजिए ना प्लीज. क्वेश्चन मैम एक बार फिर से रिपीट कर.
Now let's start with as you are asking Riya, that coming up of the factory is this topic.
Ma'am.
Now first write down the question here. The coming of the factories, the coming up of factories, how does it affected the life of the people? Coming of the factories, how it affected the life of the people as well as the labor class, as well as the labor class. Write down. The earliest factories in England, jaldi, fast click ho gaye. The earliest factories in England came up in 1730. The earliest factories in England came up by 1730. In the late 18th century, their number multiplied, but the effects can be as follow. All right. Now see here. Write down the first effect. First effect, write it. That वॉल्यूम बढ़ाना होगा तो कैसे बढ़ेगा शिवम? कर्सर को ले जाके वहां वॉल्यूम पे रखे स्पीकर के पास, तो वो आगे बढ़ेगा कैसे?
मैम लैपटॉप यूज कर रही हैं?
हाँ
मैम एक ऑडियो
मैम
सेटिंग
F2 मैम F3 है.
हाँ ठीक
F3
है,
है मैम.
ऑडियो
उसको
के पास हम लेकर आए हैं, लेकिन एकदम 100% नहीं है, 67% है, तो उसको कैसे?
मैम F3 आपके में बटन है F3.
हाँ
मैम F3 है मैम. F3 को पूरा फुल कर दीजिए.
F3 F2 हमको पता नहीं कहाँ पे है. I am not
मैम
finding.
सबसे ऊपर में मैम, सबसे फर्स्ट लाइन.
अच्छा,
इन फर्स्ट वन उसमें F3 है, उसको पूरा उसको क्लिक कर दीजिए. पूरा मतलब उसको डालिए, क्लिक कीजिए, टाइप कीजिए.
है देखो.
यस मैम.
बढ़ा वॉल्यूम मेरा? हाँ हो गया, 100%
Yes, ma'am.
वॉल्यूम बढ़ गई. थैंक यू.
यस मैम, क्योंकि हम भी वही यूज कर रहे हैं.
थैंक यू, हो गया मेरा. चलो अब नेक्स्ट मार्क की फर्स्ट पॉइंट मार्क है. रिचर्ड आर्कराइट created the cotton mill. Richard Arkwright created the cotton mill where machines were set up and maintained. Write it. In the mill, all processes were done. For example, carding, twisting, spinning, and rolling were brought together under were brought together under one roof and management, were brought together under one roof and management. Right? Now go to the second point and write, this allowed a more careful, this allowed a more careful supervision, this allowed more careful supervision over the production process. This allowed a more careful supervision over the production process. Give a comma and write, a watch over quality, a watch over quality, and facilitated the regulations of labor, facilitated the regulation of labor. All this helped to increase production. All this helped to increase production. Last right. Increased productivity. Write the third and the last. The increased productivity also resulted in the increase of productivity also led to the increase of demand for cotton, increase the demand for cotton from 2.5 million pounds, from 2.5 million pounds of cotton, 2.5 million pounds of cotton imported in 1760, imported in 1760, the figure rose to 22 million pound. The figure rose to 22 million pounds in 1787. हो गया? Priya? Priya, got the answer now?
मैम एक बार डेट फिर से रिपीट कीजिए ना 1700
तुम बहुत बोलती हो, माइक को अपना ऑफ करो, घर में भी हल्ला होते रहता है।
मेरे में से नहीं आ रहा मैम,
नहीं ना
मैम मेरे में से नहीं आ रहा। नो मैम, हम अपने रूम में बैठे हुए हैं,
जो लड़का अटेंडेंस लेता है उसको
एसटी से आ रहा है मैम।
I will remove you. Now mark the last from here. 2.5 million pounds of cotton imported in 1760, and the figure rose to 22 million pounds in 1787. So far we had done hand labor and steam power, we had done life of the workers also completed. Now let's start with industrialization in the colonies. From here we have to do now industrialization in the colonies. What does it say? That India became one of the colonies of the British Empire. How does the British industries affected the life of the Indian industrialist, Indian capitalist class? Did it affected the capitalist class, market? What was the condition of the industrialists? So here we have to read that coming up of the Britishers, did it affected the life of the Indians? From both the sides you will write. The Indian industrialists who had set up huge industries, factories and big machineries, and also those who was practicing trade from small scale industry, cottage or domestic industries. These all were affected. So you will write from here that industrialization in the colonies, open that book, open that page and mark here. India too had a colony and industrializes. Once again, now here mark it, India was also a colony of industrialists. Or you can change the sentence and write it like this. The British colonies like India, then it will be very clear. The British colonies like India industrialized. The British colonies like India industrialized with the development of factory. Till here it is given in your book. Factory industries, a non-mechanized sector. Non-mechanized means where small scale industries, not using machine but manual labor. So you will mark here and also mark this period, the period before industrialization, in India affected the Indian industrialists. Now the first topic is given, the age of Indian textiles. What was or which type of Indian textiles was made and what was its importance? Was Indian textile made by hand demanded in international market? You will say yes, huge demand of the Indian textiles. For example, here you will mark that before the age of machine industries, silk and cotton goods from India dominated the industrial markets in textile. But the point that silk and cotton, Dhaka Malmal, have you heard this name? This Malmal, fine weaved cloth, cotton linen cloth, highly demanded in the European countries, and it was made by small scale industrialists. So here, second you will write, the finer varieties often came from India. Then again mark, Armenian, Persian merchants took the goods from Punjab to Afghanistan. See how they practice the trade. Second mark, Eastern Persia and also Central Asia. Got it? A vibrant sea trade, vibrant means continuously. A vibrant sea trade operated through the main pre-colonial ports. Which was the pre-colonial ports? Britishers का पहले कौन सा port था? Surat in Gujarat. That was Surat on the Gujarat coast connected India to the Gulf and Red Sea ports. Third mark here, Masulipatam on Coromandel coast. Hooghly in Bengal had trade link with Southeast Asian ports. Now all these areas which you have marked, that India had a trading post there and India was connected with trade with these countries. Can we say that India practiced trade with industrialists' product or the goods which was produced in industries, heavy industries? We will say no. They used to practice trade with the goods made by hand, labor, manual labor, small scale industries, cottage and or you can say domestic industries, because it is written in the beginning, non-mechanized trade was practiced. Now, second market, a variety of Indian merchants and bankers were involved in the network of export trade. Mark this line. They gave advances to the weavers. procured woven cloth from the weavers and carried the supply to the ports. है ना, एक इंटरमीडियरी था जो villagers को ले जाकर देता था raw material, and when they produced the goods, they took the goods and then they brought to the traders near the ports. The traders who had a trading post with different countries, they used to took the goods and they went for abroad. Mark here, the big shippers and export merchants had brokers who negotiated the price and bought good from the supply merchants operating inland. Mark here. Now, here again you will write in the last, this exported and this exported to the rest of the world. This was exported to the rest of the world. Now come to the next. By 1750, don't mark this line. Don't mark this line. Just say bracket, put it in bracket, but don't write it in your answer. But by 1750, this network controlled by Indian merchants was breaking down. Now, why it was breaking down? Because the European companies started gaining control over Indian markets. All right, Indian merchants, Indian traders, small scale industrialists, everywhere the British companies started showing their domination. So when you will start this next phase, that first phase you have written about what was the effect on the Indian people by the coming up of the colonials. Second phase you will write that after the coming of the Britishers, which type of trade they practice, how it affected on the life of the Indians. Now first phase which I told you, you will write that coming up of the Britishers or the colonials affected the life of the Indians. Second, you will write that in the second phase that how colonials affected the life of the Indians. दोनों को उलट दोगे, पहले लिखोगे इंडियंस पे क्या इफेक्ट था और दूसरा था कि इंडियंस पे उसका colonial people पे क्या असर था. How did they suppress the Indians? So they started dominating the trade. Now first see here, European companies gradually gained power. Second market, monopoly rights to trade. Second market. Third, this resulted in decline of old ports of Surat and Hooghly through which local merchants had operated. Export from these ports fell dramatically. Right? पता है क्यों? ब्रिटिशर्स सूरत गुजरात से जो पहले ट्रेड करते थे, why they left it and why they started trading with Bombay. Yesterday I told you that Bombay became the trading post. They shifted from Surat to Bombay. What was the reason behind it? Now, you are not reading that chapter, but one of the chapter which was in your book, it says that Bombay was made by 7 islands, right? And in that 7 islands, Portuguese used to rule there. Portuguese was ruling over that 7 island of Bombay. What did the Britishers did? They married their prince to the princess of Portuguese. And in dowry, they took that 7 island. Right. So 7 island which was in the hand of Portuguese now shifted to the hand of the Britishers. And as it shifted to the Britishers, very fast, Britishers took one step that they changed their trading post from Surat to Bombay. Right. And as they shifted, Bombay became one of the industrial sector. Yesterday I told you Bombay became the magnet for the migrants. Why? Because it became one of the industrial sector of the textiles, iron and steel. workers started flowing in Bombay. Nearby district, there is one Ratnagiri district in Bombay, from where the workers started migrating to live in Bombay. Bombay became one of the prime center of the trade. Population increased. Now it is one of the Bollywood center. So it is one of the attraction of the people because Bombay became one of the trading post. Now whenever anyone will ask from Surat, why it shifted to Bombay? Very simple reason. The Portuguese princess was married to the British prince. Prince of Wales. And as he was married, he took in dowry that 7 islands and they shifted their capital from Surat to Bombay. Now mark here, the next point mark it, that Bombay and Calcutta, Surat and Hooghly decayed. Next point mark it, Surat and Hooghly decayed. Bombay and Calcutta grew. Bombay and Calcutta grew. Then again mark grew. A shift from old port to the new ones. New one was one of the indicator of colonial power. A shift from old one to new one was showing that the power of the colonial people had increased. The power of the colonial people had increased. All right. The new ports, last conclude your answer. The new ports came to be controlled by the British companies, British East India companies. The new ports came to be controlled by British East India companies. Now, very important 5 marks question. How did these changes? How did these changes means shifting the port from Surat to Bombay? How did these changes, bracket mein likho, these means what? Shifting the port from Surat to Bombay affected the life of the weavers, and other artisans. How did these changes affected the life of weavers and other changes? And the artisans. All right. देखो वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट एक चीज इसमें देखना कि वीवर्स को पहले they used to give raw materials and they used to produce the goods. When the Britishers came, they started giving advance to the Indian weavers because the Indian clothes were highly demanded, more than that of the machine-made goods of the Britishers. So they didn't used to leave that also. They wanted to have them in your clutch. As the Indian farmers, peasants or laborers were very poor, what they did, whenever the Britishers used to give them the advance, they quickly used to take it because their life was very miserable. With that advance, they used to fulfill most of their demands. But later you will find that Britishers started having one of the intermediaries known as Gomastas. These Gomastas used to give advance to the Indian weavers from the British side. They were the person appointed by the colonial people. Though they were the Indian, these Gomastas were not from that village also. They were the other village. So they had no sympathy from that villagers. So when Gomastas was appointed, they had no sympathy with Indian weavers. So what they did, they took the money from the Britishers, give it advance to the Indian workers, laborers, or you can say weavers. They produced the goods, time was given to them, and they used to come on that particular date only to collect the produced goods. if the Indian weavers didn't completed their goods on a time given as a target, they were beaten bitterly. You know, their condition was not very good. Now, as they were starting this project, weaving, earning money, then the Indian weavers who had a small piece of land, they started leaving that land because whole day they took in weaving the clothes. They had no time left for going for cultivation. So later they deserted their land also. But when the life of the weavers became hell due to these gomastas, because they had no sympathy for the Indian weavers wanted to go back to their own profession. Means they wanted to cultivate the land also, because as they were not cultivating that, their survival was very miserable, you can say. They were not able to survive because a limited amount of money was given to them by gomastas. So what they did in the end, they started leaving the weaving, and they started leaving the village and going to other village where their close relatives are from, to free themselves from these gomastas. So the life of the Indian weavers became hell by the coming of these colonial people, particularly when they started appointing gomastas to collect the revenues, to collect the goods from these weavers. So when I gave you this question, how did the changes affect the life of the weavers and other artisans? Their life was not good by the coming up of the British colonials. Now see here what happened to the weavers. As we have to do, the condition of the weavers, write it on the top. The condition of the weavers can be understood on the top, right, as an introduction. The condition of the weavers can be understood through following points. First, market. Before establishing, mark here, that the East India companies in 1760 did not finally lead to decline in textile exports from India. Change the point and write. Before establishing political power in Bengal and Carnatic in 1760s and 1770s, the East India Company found it difficult to ensure a regular supply to goods for export. Regular supply of goods, regular supply of goods to export. So, last market, the French, the Dutch, the Portuguese, the local traders competed in the market to secure woven clothes. So the weavers and supply merchants could bargain and try selling the produce to the best buyers. बेस्ट बायर्स मतलब जो बहुत अच्छा प्राइस देगा उसी को ना बेस्ट बायर्स कहा जाएगा. Now next, again last market. The company felt that if it establishes, next paragraph में देखो company की जगह लिखा है the East India Company established political power to have a monopoly right to trade. क्योंकि अगर political power उसके हाथ में आ गया तो वो आराम से इंडिया में trade practice कर सकता है. Monopoly means having a master, one person rule over that. Monopoly right to trade over which two things? Cotton and silk, right there. On which those two things they wanted to practice trade, cotton and silk textile. Now, before writing that, write A. The company awarded for establishing their power in India. What steps they took? First market. The company, जहाँ पे first लिखा हुआ है वहाँ पे market. The company tried to eliminate the existing traders and brokers connected with the cloth trade. India का जो अपना industrialist था, जो India